All right, hello everybody. I'm Kelly with DONE.photos, and I'm so glad that you're here today with us for this webinar. This session is about outdoor school photography, led by Michelle Hammond from Schoolhouse Pictures. If you didn't catch her class at SPAC 2026 a couple of weeks ago, then you're in the right place. This started as a poolside outdoor class at SPAC, and today we're excited to share it with you right here. Michelle leads the photography team at Schoolhouse Pictures, a national studio known for creating natural, student-centered images using real campus environments and available light. She's going to walk through practical techniques that you can actually use, from working with natural light to keeping things consistent and efficient. As you're watching, please feel free to drop questions into the chat. We'll be answering those questions as we go and at the end if we don't get to them during this, but please feel free to, in real time, go ahead and drop them in the chat. And with that, I'll hand it over to you, Michelle.
Thank you, Kelly, and thank you to DONE.photos for sponsoring this today. I'm excited to be here and share with you some of our process for capturing authentic pictures outside. Again, I'm Michelle with Schoolhouse Pictures. We're a natural light outdoor picture company. Our approach is boutique in style, and it can be customized to fit your school picture company. This feels like a little bit of busy season for me when I talk to the photographers who work for us about what we're looking to capture as we go into these schools across the country. We use contract photographers, they're real photographers, so we're asking for a little more than just setting up a light kit and dialing in your settings. So we're gonna kind of go over what we do for this whole process. Outdoor portraits feel authentic and grounded in place. They use natural expressions, real environments, and pieces of the school woven into every image. And in a world of AI, that kind of authenticity really matters. Okay, so we're going to start with our planning process. The ideal school client for outdoor portraits is a school that is really flexible and supportive of the product. Realistically, if you're having to hard sell a school into doing it and they're not really on board, but they say they're going to do it anyway, it's probably not going to end well for you. And not every school is going to want outdoor portraits, and that's okay. But the ones who do want it, we can really offer a phenomenal product, something that is exciting. So things to keep in mind when you're just initially going through these conversations with the school, timing. Or this process takes a little bit longer. We're outside, you're not just funneling people through. The classes need to come outside to see you. Is the school going to be okay with this? You want to make sure you're on the same page. Consistency of the yearbook pictures. I mean, we all kind of know that that's really why the school has us in there, right? They need their yearbook pictures, they need their products. How important is consistency to this school? If they're going to have a hard time letting go of that blue backdrop, and every kid having the exact same angle, then you may not want to go any further. But if they're okay with that, and you can get consistent looking yearbook pictures, it's easier than you might think, but you need to gauge how important this is to your school so that you can make a plan for that. Permission from the school to relocate when the light changes, because realistically, if we're working outside with natural light, the light is going to change and we're going to need to move just a little bit. And enough space, enough outdoor space to accommodate the number of photographers that you need to get the job done. And so a planning visit is a must. For this to go really well, there has to be a lot of thought and organization into what picture day is going to look like. So prior to actually going to the school and having a planning visit, I highly recommend going on Google Maps and taking a look at what the school looks like. Then you can kind of zero in on the places that you would like to visit when you get there. And it's just good to have an idea in your head of what the campus is going to look like. I just pulled a couple of examples here. This is the same school, 2 pictures. These 2 buildings are across from each other. I like them because they have a covering. over them, so they're going to provide some shade. So when we get to the school, I'm going to look at these closely and see how the light is and how the, the foot traffic is, because that's another thing when you're outside. You need to pick a spot where there's not a lot of activity. Another thing that I highly recommend before you go to this planning visit is to download an app like Sun Tracker AR, and that will show you how the sun is going to move throughout the day. So you can gauge like where the shadows are going to be when, and just something to keep in mind so you're going in prepared. Definitely take your camera to be ready to take pictures of the potential picture spots. You can take it with your phone, but I don't know if you've ever taken a picture with your phone and you're like, wow, this looks great. And then you go into your phone settings and the shutter speed's like 1/60. I mean, you and I both know that these pictures are not going to be in focus if you're doing that. So it's better to take your real camera and set your settings for what you want so you can get an idea of what the light is going to look like. Okay, so at the actual planning visit, you're going to want to scout different locations, knowing that the light's going to move, knowing that you have like a backup plan. And again, you're going to want to take those pictures we just talked about. And the ideal lighting conditions are going to be open shade. That is what's going to give you the best look. You're going to want to stay away from shade under trees, which isn't going to look all that great. There are going to be shadows on their faces. And you are going to want to kind of make sure that there's enough room for all the photographers that you need to bring. Another thing to really discuss with the school is what the class pictures are going to look like. And we can touch more on that later, but that is something that you need to talk about in advance and have a plan for, because nothing disrupts class picture day like not knowing what to do with your class pictures. You're going to lose valuable time if you don't have a plan going into it. Okay, so our overall kind of guidelines that we're looking at once the planning visit is over and we're ready to send photographers into a school to get these pictures. First and foremost, we shoot in RAW unless the conditions are absolutely perfect. These pictures are probably going to require a little bit of editing on the back end. They're going to need the shadows lifted, some highlights brought down, maybe, I mean, the light at the beginning of the day is going to look a little different than the light at the end of the day. So just something to kind of bring that all together a little more. So highly recommend shooting in RAW. And this is one of those times when you need to know your camera settings. If your camera is throwing out 90 megabyte RAW files, you're going to buy like 50,000 external drives and really hate this whole process. And you don't need that much information. All you have to do is make it into a small RAW file, but you're going to want to know that prior to picture day. Keep in mind that, you may be choosing a very small space to work in. And that's okay. I mean, that can actually work. We have a school of ours in someplace I've never been before, and this whole school was set up prior to me kind of organizing these aspects of picture day. And I would just get these beautiful pictures from these photographers, and this school must be so pretty. And then one of the photographers described the school to me after a picture day, and I went and looked on Google Maps, and that's the picture on the left is basically that school in a business park, in a parking lot with 3 or 4 trees. I'm so impressed. Photographers just amaze me all the time, but these 2 pictures are from a picture day at that school. So you can take a small space and definitely make it work. So another thing to keep in mind about is weather. We are kind of slaves to weather when we shoot outside. Fall is basically our busy season, and fall tends to be pretty dry. So we get really, really lucky. I try not to spend a whole lot of time obsessing over the weather. I feel like I could just never sleep if I did that. But about 7 days out, we start paying attention to the forecast. We use WeatherBug. I mean, I'm not paid by them or anything. I'm not getting a kickback. That is the most reliable weather forecasting app that I've ever used. I pay attention to the hourly the closer we get to picture day. I mean, if the school says, oh, it's 75% chance of rain, like we need to cancel. I'm like, yes, but if it doesn't start until 5 p.m., we're perfectly fine. So we keep an eye on the weather, and we always kind of have a contingency plan in the back of our minds. But having said that, we rarely have to use it. But you also don't want any surprises, and you don't really want the school telling you about the weather. So, I mean, they will, but you already want to know what it looks like before. So yeah, definitely keep an eye on that, but it'll be fine. School, it'll be fine. Okay, so we are a natural light picture company. We don't use flash. I will talk a little bit about flash because I know that people will want to use flash, but we work with what we're given, and we hug the shade of the building a lot. We move around when we need to, but this is what we do. So at the end of the day, though, this is volume photography. You still need consistent lighting. These pictures, they're different than what everybody else offers, but they need to be good. And so you need to kind of master that natural light. It's tricky, but it's totally doable. Again, you're going to look for that open shade. If you get really lucky, a cloudy day, I mean, even though it's cloudy, you still need to be aware of the sun is and where it's moving, but that does kind of help things along a little bit. The light in the middle of the day can get a little tricky. So you can use a modifier, even though you're not using a light. You can just pop an umbrella up on a stand just like this, and it's fine. You can move it as the sun moves. It's going to be a beautiful light. You can, now I'm not even talking about like an umbrella that you would use as a modifier. I'm talking about just a white umbrella. And that's just one thing that's easy. It's portable. Just, you're going to want to make sure you have some sandbags so that you can secure that light stand. Okay, and just a little bit about, I want to touch on settings. Again, this isn't really necessarily a how-to class, more of just a general overview of our workflow. But settings it's a good question. What we are looking for is, I'm always looking for a shutter speed of about 250 or higher. These are small kids sometimes. The kids are moving, the photographers are moving. It's really just best to cover all your bases with your shutter speed. The aperture, the more wide open you shoot, the prettier the picture is going to be. And the end goal should be a creamy, soft light with separation from the background. And there's really sometimes going to be things in the background you don't want your families to see on the back end. So as much blur as possible is always recommended. And for that, I'd say an aperture of 3.5 or less. You know, this is different than your normal school picture when you want every button in focus. We're offering something that looks a little bit different than that. So as far as ISO, as low as possible. And this is kind of one of those areas where you need to know how your camera performs and what your I mean, some of these newer cameras, you can really jack up that ISO and the pictures are still beautiful. But this is definitely the easiest way to cheat with all your settings. And as for Kelvin settings, this isn't really something, because we're shooting in RAW and sending out to edit, this isn't really something we focus too much on, simply because the light's constantly changing and we're having to move these students through quickly. And sometimes it's hard to take a minute and change the settings in your camera. So if I'm like maybe shooting against a big brick background, I'm probably going to dial it into something just so that every picture looks a little more consistent, instead of shooting with an auto white balance where the brick is going to look like a totally different color from child to child. But that's all for the Kelvin. Okay, I want to speak a little bit about flash, but again, please know that this is not my area of expertise. I just think that it would help some photographers if they could pop a little flash up, and you just need to be careful though. I mean, these pictures, like the whole kind of idea of going outside is to have a natural look and not a flashy look. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about using a little portable flash unit. The lighting is not going to overpower the sun. You know, that's just not going to happen. So it's definitely best to use as like for fill, to lift some shadows off the faces, and maybe a rim light. You know, the closer you have your light to your subject, the more light that is going to hit the subject. Keep in mind that the shutter speed is going to control the ambient light and the flash power is going to control the subject, but you have to know your sync limits on that. You don't want to be shooting away and then realize you have a picture that's like got the black curtain on it. Know the sun's direction. I mean, that's kind of important for everything outside as far as photography goes. If the sun is behind the subject, the flash is going to become more of a fill light. If the sun is at the side of the subject, the fill light again, the flash is going to fill those shadows, and overhead, the flash is going to lift the shadows on the face, get rid of those dark circles around the eyes that the sun can cause. You're going to want to modify that light. If you can't just kind of throw it up there and start shooting, you're going to want to use a softbox or an umbrella, or maybe even a beauty dish with a little bit of diffusion, depending on what kind of pictures that you're taking. Keep in mind that the larger the modifier, the softer the light is going to be. And you're always going to want to bring sandbags, especially if you're using an umbrella. The wind just kind of picks it right up. So for the safety of picture day, yeah, please go ahead and make sure that's as anchored to the ground as possible. Okay, so this is from SPAC a couple of weeks ago. We were outside, and when I got the time for the class, it was 1:45, and I was like, wow, 1:45 in Vegas. Like, that's going to be a lot of sun in the afternoon. And then, you know, we did a little planning visit the day before. We went and looked around. We're like, okay, like, this is the whole pool area. Okay, so there's bound to be some shade somewhere. And then we kind of walked out there, and the seats were all set up, and we realized this is where we were shooting. So basically we tried to make do. We kind of were stuck with a background, and sometimes picture day goes like that. So we had a light set up. You'll see the diffuser on it, the umbrella, and so this is it. And this is how the pictures turned out. Sorry about this. Right there. So you can see that little bit of light just took away the harsh sun, took away a little bit of the shadows, because we did end up under a tree. So it was that little bit of light just popped that right off. So. Okay, so our individual student portrait process. Don't just take a yearbook picture and move on to the next student. As long as you're outside, please take advantage of having a great background. Use this as an opportunity to take more than one pose, and then you're going to be able to sell multiple pictures to families instead of just one. Treat this experience like a mini photo shoot. The amount of time it takes is really insignificant to take those few extra pictures, compared to the increased revenue opportunity that you're going to have by selling more than one pictures to families. You have your picture that you're going to be able to give to, yeah, as a yearbook picture, and then, you know, the rest of them, that's a bonus for you. So really, as long as you're outside, take advantage of it. Okay, and posing. I mean, again, like, this is not a how-to class. It's more of a workflow overview. But when it comes to posing, just remember to give clear direction. Know what you have in mind and communicate that to the student, kind of guide them through what you want them to do. And you're able to talk them into the different poses you need. Just as a little bit of an aside, the school that I showed you that we had identified 2 different places to possibly use as a backdrop, this is that school. So we are under one of the porches, and this is how the pictures turned out. So I'd like to introduce Donna to you. Donna is one of our lead photographers in the Philadelphia area, and she's going to talk a little bit about posing.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I just want to start by saying I would not be in the volume space if it wasn't for Michelle and her support and training over the last, I think, 5 years. I've been a photographer with Schoolhouse Pictures, and I absolutely love it. And I love being outdoors. I love creating authentic photos, and I love kids. So I'm excited to share with you what I do when I'm on site. I like to It is certainly posing, but I like to think of it as sort of giving clear instruction and then some prompts to sort of get natural expressions. So I always start my workflow off with the yearbook photo. If you get nothing else, the school needs you to get that. And so you get that. And so for the yearbook photo, instead of it being something that's like super stiff, I try to keep it classic, but bring a little authenticity to it. So often what I do is have the student turn slightly in one direction or the other. I never tell them to turn left or right because that adds to confusion and then embarrassment for all of us, myself included. So I'll often pick something on campus and I'll say, so turn your body slightly towards the library. They do that. And then I say, now with just your head, just at your neck, turn and look straight at my camera. I start shooting right after I have them start moving so that as they're moving their head towards me for further instruction, often get something that's much more natural in their face. It's before they put on their camera smile. And I feel like it gives you that authentic look that you're looking for in these more boutique photos. So I'm chatting with them the whole time. From there, I move into a full body pose. For some kids, frankly, lots of kids, they start to clam up. You've now been there for a second. They're more conscious that you're taking photos. And so I typically will say, like, I absolutely love your look today. Love what you're wearing. Let's capture your whole outfit. I know it's important to families, especially of little kids. They've got, you know, the shoes and the hair tie and the necklace and everything. You know, we got to show it all. So it's a great opportunity to start chatting with them. But this is where I will give some pretty clear instruction. I basically, you know, you've done this, you're all photographers. So, you know, they'll stand there with their arms straight like a nutcracker. I'll say, okay, so if it bends, it bends it. So what I'm going to have you do is just pop 2 thumbs, one in each pocket. The whole hand doesn't work. Trust me on that. Don't tell them to put their whole hand in the pocket. It's not a good look. So just pop your thumbs in the pocket and then take 1 step forward, bend your knee. I'm trying to do it in my seat because I'm used to being up and doing it. But, you know, and so take 1 step and bend your knee and just like lean in like we're having a conversation. Pretend I don't have a camera in front of my face. Some kids are naturally going to do this. They're humming along. Some kids are feeling a little tense. So I'll just start asking questions. This is a great time to ask kids, you know, what their favorite ice cream is if they're really little, or do they, you know, pets or siblings, or, you know, just whatever, the weather. It doesn't even matter in that moment. While I'm chatting though, I'm turning my camera. So I'll turn and get pose 3. So I'm sure in that case, this photographer of pose 3 on this image said something silly. That's a really natural smile. That's the kind of laugh that is not practiced for Instagram, you know? So just talking. For the last pose, I actually try a couple of different versions for a creative pose, depending on what I have. With the prior student, there was nothing there there's nothing to sit on, there's no tree, there's nothing. So I'll simply have that student turn their body to the side and then look over their shoulder at me. Sometimes I'm asking them to just put their hands in front of them. I'll give that instruction. Put your hands across your waist and grab one gently, grab one forearm gently with your hand. And then look at me like I just said something interesting. And of course, I'm never interesting. So, you know, that's hysterically funny. And you get a nice laugh. I'm turning that camera again, both directions to capture. And then if I am lucky enough to have something like in this photo, a tree, particularly little kids love themselves a tree. And so just use it. And you can get all of your poses with this tree. Typically, I will have them step out like in pose 4, just so there's a slightly different background for that family. But leaning your back up against a tree, looking over your shoulder, it just changes those angles up. And again, like Michelle was saying, I feel like it gives that mini photo shoot, that more boutique. It's not just stiff and static. And so leaning, arms crossed, arms down, you know, excuse me. I just walk them through putting their arms in different positions. Excuse me. If there's something to sit on, I absolutely will use that for this 4th pose. If you see the student on the left-hand side bottom, it's just like a little garden railing, like a little stone edging to the garden. I'm going to use that if I have it, and I'll have them sit. Typically what I'll do, because kids will sit and slouch immediately, is just sit up on the edge, but let's pretend like we're waiting for your parents to get here to pick you up after sports and it's taking them a really long time. that typically makes them laugh. Every kid has waited a little too long for their parents to come pick them up. So again, it's just trying to get them natural. You can see the photographer here in this photo also asks the student, put your thumbs in your pocket. It bends those arms, even if you never see those thumbs in the pocket. It just really changes the way students are holding their bodies, and just relaxes it all, which I think works so beautifully with the background outdoors. Sibling and buddy portraits, if you offer them, they are a lot of fun and also sometimes a lot of work. So little kids like elementary age are so much fun because they love this kind of thing. When you've got older kids, they might need a little bit more direction because they feel a little more self-conscious about it. But for both kinds of students, what I typically do is have the siblings or buddy. If it's buddy or golden, you don't have to say anything. You just take pictures because they're so excited to have pictures with their friends. If it's their older sister or brother, they might need a little more assistance in knowing what to do. So typically I have the students come up. You'll see immediately in a sibling group, they immediately will assemble in a way that's natural for them. In pose one, I'm pretty sure those two just walked up to the photographer and hooked arms and take that picture. From there, I typically will say, I love that. I love your pose. I love what you did there. Can we try one of mine? And that's when I start directing them a little bit. Can you put your arm over your brother or sister's shoulder gently? No, what is that when kids choke holds or anything like that? And again, I'm moving that camera up and down. Sometimes kids don't want to necessarily, they're not the comfy, cozy siblings who want to be hugging. As you can see in pose 3, maybe you have kids who are, sometimes if they're older, you'll see this, they just keep in a lot of space and you still want to create a portrait that's nice for their family. So I'll work with that though. It's like face one another, look at each other, look at, which one of you has the messiest bedroom at home. Just trying to talk to them to get them to relax and laugh and point at each other and just kind of interact. And then from there I'll say, okay, now guys, quick, look at me, give me your best parent smile, whatever that is. And then for the last pose, even if they're not super comfy, cozy, just trying to get them as close together while remaining on the same plane as possible. I'll have them kind of lean in and I'll say, see if you can, put your ears together and see if you can hear what the other person's thinking, stuff like that. And that works really well with an elementary age group. High schooler would roll their eyes at me, so I probably wouldn't use that one. But your audience and what kind of energy you're facing with each set of siblings or each individual kiddo. So that's generally what I do, just that like real clear instruction with probably too much talking on my part, but it seems to work pretty well to get kids to just relax and feel like, we're having fun for a couple minutes while we capture photos for their families. That's it. Thank you, Michelle. Michelle, you are muted.
Thank you, Donna. And thank you for that. So we just want to make sure that as you're moving from the individual portrait to the sibling portrait, watch your aperture. It's one of the things that you don't necessarily have to worry about when you're working under lights. You're good to go. But outside, and it makes a difference, tightening it up and loosening. It's just worth doing. You just have to be aware of it. Another thing is also for the group photos. You're going to want to watch your aperture on that. Yeah, and so again, you're going to have a plan already in place by the time picture day comes. Some schools will have risers. Those are really great schools. Sometimes you're going to put chairs out. You're going to do what you need to do to get all of their faces and get them in focus. So sometimes if the school is open to it, we like to take class pictures all at once in the beginning of the day because you have more shade that you're working with, and it's just easier to get those pictures and they're nicer looking on the back end. And this is just a couple more examples of how class pictures can look. And that's it for us. I'd like to thank you for attending. If you're here, you care about capturing great school pictures, and hopefully this presentation has given you information about how to do that consistently. And I'd also like to thank DONE.photos for hosting this webinar.
Thank you so much, Michelle and Donna. Thank you for that. I am always so amazed to see what Schoolhouse Pictures is able to produce from sometimes difficult circumstances being outdoors. So thank you. That was incredibly helpful and packed with great takeaways, I think, for everybody. So we're going to open things up quickly for some questions. If you have a question, go ahead and type it in the chat real quick. If not, you are more than welcome to send questions to me, and I can get them over to Michelle and Donna after this webinar. So if you have anything to ask about outdoor setups, lighting, posing, or workflow, drop it into the chat now. We have a quiet group today. That's okay. She packed that full of information, so I understand her already have answered all of your questions. Okay. Oh, I've got one. Oh, great question. This question's from Marisa. How do you handle a crying child?
Crying children, yes, that happens. The younger the children are, the more likely that is, especially if you go into childcare centers or preschools. Unfortunately, it's volume photography. I mean, you still are only working with a small number of minutes. And we usually just tell the school, like, please bring them back out. Like, if they calm down, you know, we're here until what, or we're here for 3 days, or just please bring them back out when they've calmed down. Because, you know, at this point, you're just a stranger, and you trying to calm them down is just, it's not going to work. So.
Yes. Crying children, always part of the job, right? Okay. Next one is from Mary about how much time do you spend per child?
So that's a really good question. That depends on the age. The younger ones, like the childcare centers we were just talking about, it's probably a good 4 minutes per student. They need a little more time. Sibling set is realistically more like 5 minutes per student. And I would say a student between the ages of maybe 5 or 6 and middle school, that's a whole nother ball game. But I would say about 2 to 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. And from Simon, what is your policy on makeups or missing children?
Wow, Simon, that is a really, really good question. It's something I've been thinking a lot about recently. It depends on the size of the school, I think. If it's a really small school, it's kind of hard to go back for makeup day. If it's a school, we're always hopeful that if it's a school where we're there multiple days, that they can come one of the other days. But realistically, if the school asks for a makeup day, we're going to give them a makeup day.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Any other questions before we hop off? Okay, then we'll go ahead and wrap things up. And from all of us at DONE.photos, thank you for spending time with us today. We love helping to support studios like Schoolhouse Pictures and sharing real-world techniques that help you work smarter and create images that schools truly love. This was a great topic, and thank you, Michelle, for providing some insight that a lot of photographers don't actually have for us. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next time.